No one knew exactly when everything began to fracture. Some said it was around 3 in the morning. Others insisted they had seen strange, drifting lights in the sky the night before. But me? I remember that moment as if it was etched into my spine at 4:17 a.m., August 12th. The moment the world stopped breathing. At that time, I was lying on the cold cement floor of a maintenance workshop. My ears were wrapped in an old pair of headphones, playing mellow lo-fi music. I liked that feeling, solitude, the quietness between the sizzling crackle of a welding torch nearby and the soft yellow flickers dancing on the rusted ceiling. But the chill that ran down my spine wasn't from the floor. It came from something older than logic, an animal instinct, a silent alarm going off before the mind could name the danger. My name is Jax. 28 years old. A mechanical technician at an outpost nestled deep in the far northern cold zone, where winters last longer than memory itself. No one knew who I was. No one cared what I did. And I didn't care what they thought. But after that night, the name Jax, the name I had always believed meaningless, would shake the Falzar star system to its core. I remember standing up, stepping outside without knowing why. The door opened to a sky thick with black clouds, no sun, no fog, no sound. The pine forest in front of the station stood deathly still, as if someone had frozen the entire dimension. No wind. No birdsong. And then I saw them. Threads of light, long, living strands, gliding silently across the sky, glowing with a green-blue shimmer like bioluminescent enzymes. They weaved with eerie order, their movements deliberate, almost sentient. Something about the way they floated made my skin crawl, as if the sky had grown eyes and was scanning each neighborhood to choose someone. Moments later, all radio frequencies collapsed. No signal. No satellites. Everything shut down without warning, like some giant cosmic hand had flicked Earth's infrastructure off as an afterthought. Then they came. Dark ships, smooth as biological eggshells, rose out of the atmosphere as if they had been waiting inside the clouds all along. They didn't fire. They didn't destroy. They didn't kill. They just quietly pulled women away. I drove back to the city in despair. Roads I once knew by heart had become corridors of death. Cars still idled, doors wide open, but no one inside. Homes left with plates still warm on the table. A baby's diaper lay soaked on a hallway floor, but no crying. Then I reached the central square. The place where I once held a red-haired girl named Lee during the first snowfall. The place where I whispered that I loved her, with a voice trembling like a child's. That place was now buried beneath a nightmare with shape and weight. A massive ship, gelatinous and alive, hovered above the plaza. Its underbelly opened, not a hatch, but a mouth. From it slithered tendrils as white and silky as spiderwebs. They moved like underwater tentacles, soft yet purposeful. They touched each woman, scanning their bodies, then wrapped around them like sentient ribbons and lifted them away, like live sacrifices to a silent god. No one stopped them. There were no gunshots. No resistance. They didn't touch men. Didn't kill. Didn't detain. Didn't even acknowledge us, as if we were a secondary species. I screamed. I threw everything. I ran forward and grabbed one of the tendrils, my hand burning as if I had touched living acid. I saw one woman being taken. She looked at me. No tears. No screams. Just an apology in her eyes. As if she was sorry I wasn't strong enough. Sorry I couldn't save her. Then a jolt hit my chest, not a blow, but the brutal truth, I wasn't strong enough. When I woke, the sky was pitch black. No light. No sound. Just a hollow planet, not destroyed, but abandoned. 3 days passed like 3 years. No communication. No news. New York, Tokyo, Moscow, silent. No rescue. No messages. We were trapped in a biological pressure dome, sealed like a test subject. And the world accepted it. People returned to tilling dirt, burning firewood, eating canned food, like technology had never existed. Except me. I refused. I dug through everything my grandfather left behind. He had once been a space soldier, the kind of man dismissed as a relic from forgotten wars. But in the bunker, I found something no one ever spoke of. A biological core, shaped like an egg, coated in a deep red membrane like congealed blood. It reacted to my touch. Not with electricity, but with memory. Memories encoded in my DNA. I saw planets devoured in flame. Warriors with glowing skin wielding weapons that had no names. I saw eyes, my own, but from a different form, a different rage, one that had erased 3 star systems from galactic charts. My body started to change. Not just my eyes. Not just my hands. Every cell lit up, ignited by something more primal than evolution. It wasn't mutation, it was activation. My grandfather once warned me that bloodline made the galaxy tremble. If you wake it, you won't be human anymore. But they'll remember you. I woke it. My name is Jax. And I am no longer ordinary. They took our women. They thought we were extinct. But they forgot one thing. We are the reason the galaxy once built walls. Somewhere aboard a mothership, an alien figure leans over a sleeping Earth woman suspended in a biogenic pod. Her skin glows faint like living jade, her movements slow and dreamlike. Her fingers trace the human's hair, and her lips murmur words in a language no species has dared translate, like a love song never meant to be sung. Perhaps not all of them are the same. Perhaps some of them have begun to feel the forbidden. My body no longer felt pain. Nor did it feel cold. What I once called senses, hearing, sight, touch, seemed to have been replaced by something alien, yet infinitely more refined. I could hear the delicate tremble of air currents, like an electronic symphony drifting through the stratosphere. I could smell ozone from a storm hundreds of miles away. I could sense the thermal motion of life forms beneath meters of frost-covered ground. And even more, my awareness extended upward, toward orbit, where a reconnaissance drone from Varnex rotated slowly like an unblinking eye, watching us from above. It couldn't see me. But I could see it as clearly as staring into the pupil of something about to die. The blood in my veins no longer flowed as before. It had become a network, a living system. It remembered. It reacted. And somehow it guided me toward a door my grandfather had sealed decades ago, buried beneath the floor of the old bunker. A black steel panel, engraved with a strange emblem, the symbol of Project Originum. Beneath it, a warning etched like a curse, only open if humanity is being hunted. I opened it. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Inside was a pod. Not machinery. Not a weapon as I had imagined. But a living organism, dormant. A suit that breathed, trembling softly like the body of a newborn creature. As I approached, it let out a sound, a low exhale, like the sigh of some ancient animal. Then it unfolded, panels of biological skin stretching open as if it had been waiting for me. When I laid my hand on it, a whisper surged through me, and not from any mouth, but from my blood itself, the waken. When I stepped inside, it didn't wrap around me like a suit. It merged with me. It seeped into every pore. It fused with my nervous system. The genetic code of my ancestors, warriors engineered not to serve, but to rage, began to roar. In that moment, I was no longer Jax, the anonymous technician surviving the frost. I became the last descendant of a generation so feared, the galaxy tried to erase them from every record. And they had made a mistake letting me live. I left that place, not in a vehicle, but on foot, carried by strength far beyond any human limit. With every step, the living armor adjusted gravity. When my feet touched the frozen earth, the snow beneath recoiled like it feared me. I didn't need to run. I only had to walk, and the world made room. On the 7th day after the invasion, I reached a temporary refugee camp on the edge of a ruined city, where the surviving men huddled together like wolves, afraid and hopeless. They didn't know if tomorrow would bring death or starvation. When I arrived, they didn't recognize me. They only saw the burning armor, the living fire wrapped around my body, and they stepped back, eyes filled with both fear and a flicker of something else, hope. Then one man stepped forward. An old veteran, scarred, white-bearded, eyes clouded with years. He stared at me for a long time. Said nothing. Then he knelt. "You're one of them," he whispered. "The Ancient Ones. The warriors even the Orion Alliance forbade to name." I didn't deny it. I didn't confirm it either. I just walked past him and spoke to them all. "I'm here to take back what we lost." Far away, millions of kilometers above, on an enemy orbital station, an alien woman stared into her monitor. She was not like the others. Her skin was translucent, like a film of living algae, reflecting the distant light of stars. Her body shimmered like mist woven with breath and light. Her name was Rin'vess, a high-ranking bioengineer of the Varnex. One of those tasked with overseeing the harvesting of Earth's women. She had once been one of the enforcers. But lately, her eyes, once cold and clear, showed signs of disruption, as if something within her had begun to vibrate out of rhythm. She had started rereading ancient records about war, about humans, about beings that once made entire species abandon biological trade routes. Why had the old races feared the term human sentinels? Why had the ban on interacting with human warrior DNA never been lifted, even after humanity's decline? Then she saw me, a man whose biological readings defied prediction. Sensors couldn't scan me. The energy radiating from my body short-circuited part of the surveillance grid. But it wasn't the data that held her attention. It was the image of me walking through the snow. Like a lost god. Brutal. Dangerous. And strangely alluring. Within her, something awakened. Something no Varnex had ever known. A spark. Maybe curiosity. Maybe lust. She wasn't sure. And I, amidst abandoned wreckage and frozen rubble, was testing the limits of what I had become. I lifted tons of metal with my bare hands. The living armor shifted with every need, hardening like titanium upon impact, softening like skin when I needed speed. I could feel enzymes pulsing inside the suit, like a second heartbeat syncing with my own. I didn't know the full extent of my power. I only knew I was growing stronger by the hour. Not just in muscle, but in memory. Memories that weren't mine, now living inside me. Battles. Burning planets. Human warriors who never surrendered, never died, who dissolved into soil and flame and returned as me. We were once legends. Then betrayed. Hunted. Erased, called too dangerous to exist. Now I know why we were forgotten. And why it's time we were remembered. Rin'vess didn't report me to her superiors. She kept the footage. She looked at me again, and this time, her eyes weren't the eyes of a scientist. They were the eyes of a female creature, unable to breathe evenly because of a being from another species. Me alone. And the whispered name from ancient star-fearing empires. Ignis Venari, the hunter in flame. That night, I stood alone on a snowy summit, watching the enemy ships circle above like bloated flies. The wind howled across my armor, but I didn't feel the cold. In my hand, I held a worn photograph, Lee. Her eyes once smiled at me beneath city lights. Now, she was somewhere, taken as breeding stock, stripped of name and freedom. I didn't know if I could save her. But I knew one thing. They thought we had bowed. Soon, they will learn. They should never have awakened us. And when humanity remembers what we once were, there will be no place left in this galaxy for them to hide. I didn't need sleep anymore. What used to be dreams inside me had long since burned away, replaced by memories that didn't belong to this world. My blood no longer flowed like it used to. My heart still beat, but no longer just for me, it followed the rhythm of something greater. A biological map. A forgotten frequency. The kind that once echoed across the star clusters when human warriors marched across planets like myth made flesh. I was the final echo of a bloodline exiled from memory, And now, each day, the living armor on my body unlocked another encrypted layer, decoding memories long banned, scenes of massacres erased from official history. Warriors with no names. Gods stripped of their divinity. Beings born not to serve, but to reduce empires to ash, behanded. I was no longer Jax. I once carried that name, a nameless engineer, a man who lived on the margins of a declining humanity. But now, I no longer wore that identity. I had become what they once tried to seal away in an eternal furnace. I was the fury buried beneath layers of synthetic peace. And now, the flame wasn't locked anymore. It was burning. Inside me. Around me. And soon, it would spread everywhere. I wasn't a symbol. I was a side effect. An unintended consequence. A living reminder that when you push humanity to the edge, they don't go extinct, they evolve. Elsewhere, in the soft darkness beyond Earth's atmosphere, aboard one of the Varnex hybridization motherships, a female creature sat alone in a biochamber. Pale violet light shimmered on her translucent skin, turning her body into something between glass and fog, part reality, part ghost. She stared at an enhanced image sent from Earth, of me, my eyes burning with literal fire. She touched the screen lightly, then recoiled as if burned. "Why," she whispered, "why can't I stop thinking about him?" Her name was Rin'vess. A senior bioengineer, supervisor of breeding specimens, tasked with orchestrating the harvest of Earth's women. She was no stranger to flesh. No stranger to genetic compatibility. She had programmed hundreds of interspecies mating cycles without feeling anything beyond duty. But this was different. Jax. I was the anomaly. I wasn't like any human she had ever studied. Not weak. Not passive. Not submissive. Her biosensors malfunctioned every time they attempted to read the lingering energy signatures around me. The sensory nerves beneath her skin, especially the emotional resonance circuits and auxiliary reproductive filaments, twitched, overheated. She didn't report this to anyone, not out of fear, but because she didn't know what to call it. A reaction? A defect? Or a desire? I didn't know that. But I could feel someone watching. From afar. Across space. Through the skin of the universe. While I stood in the underground camp among survivors, men who had once been engineers, doctors, mercenaries, mechanics, people who had once believed in a system, lived quietly in the order of humanity, now reduced to scraps. They didn't look at me because I was powerful. They looked because I was the only one who had stepped forward. I said to them, in the voice of someone who didn't need applause, "I don't need you to be superhuman. I don't need a perfect army. I only need you to remember, we used to stand on our own. And no one, no species, takes our women without paying for it." No one responded. But they stepped forward. The emptiness in their eyes faded. They picked up old rifles, steel pipes, knives. One retrieved a forgotten mechanic's hammer. Another cleaned the longbow passed down from his father. No orders. Just pride, trampled for too long, and now rising again, like embers waiting to breathe. At that same moment, one of the Varnex transport ships was leaving Earth's orbit. Inside were dozens of women locked in stasis chambers, not in pain, but hollow. Sedated with enzymes that suppressed emotion, their reproductive systems maintained at peak viability. But one of them remained conscious. Lee. She still remembered. And every night, in that blurred half-awareness, she called my name, like a stubborn, stupid habit to keep herself from breaking. Rin'vess watched her from afar. Through the bioglass, she observed the small, trembling human body. Though chemically muted, memory could not be erased. The emotion frequency emitted from Lee's brain was measurable. Not fear, but longing. So strong it pulsed like a beacon. Rin'vess didn't understand. Why could one creature stay so connected to a memory, even one faded? And why did she find herself wanting to understand? Wanting to feel it for herself? It wasn't just curiosity. It was something else. Deeper. buried beneath her emotionless biology, under programming that was never meant to crack. And now, it was cracking, piece by piece, as the image of me continued to burn in her mind. I didn't know why I felt watched. But I did. Somewhere, there was an eye trying to pierce through me, trying to understand me, and wanting me. That night, I was alone in the base, adjusting the power core of an ancient biological cannon, a weapon that could only be unlocked by ancient human DNA. Sweat rolled down my back. My living armor breathed lightly, responding to each motion like a creature sharing my pulse. When I removed my mask, the skin on my neck blazed like it had just left a forge. The air around me shimmered as if someone had touched the boundary of my presence. And I knew. I felt her, Rin'vess. Not physically, but as a link. Subtle, but real enough to make every hair on my arm stand. She was watching. Not as a scientist, but as something torn between instinct and taboo. She wanted to understand me. She wanted to taste me. And me? I wasn't sure I hated that feeling. Elsewhere, in her private bio-compartment, Rin'vess sat nude atop a soft organic mat. Curled inwards, her hand rested on her lower abdomen, where neural sexual circuits began to twitch with faint bioelectric pulses. For the first time in hundreds of reproductive cycles, she felt unable to control her internal rhythms. She whispered in her ancient mother tongue, a language no one spoke anymore. If I meet him, will I still be myself? And on Earth, I stood atop an old relay tower, eyes fixed on orbit, where enemy ships still circled like bloated flies around a mesh of planetary nets. My hand gripped a living plasma rifle, and behind me, more than 300 men waited. Not because I was their leader, but because I was the only one who remembered what everyone else had tried to forget. We were once the nightmare. We're going to where they've locked them up. I won't promise we'll survive. But I promise this. You will remember why the galaxy once trembled at the name of mankind. I didn't choose the time of the attack based on strategy. I chose it based on instinct. Just like the genetic code inside me, which had never waited for a reason to ignite, it only needed a signal that felt right. And when that signal slammed into my chest like lightning through living armor, I knew it was time. No one gave the order. No one gave permission. I didn't inform anyone at the camp. I simply disappeared into the night, a forbidden biocannon strapped to my back, and a sensory map in my hand that would lead me straight to one of the Varnex's hidden breeding facilities, where they kept our women like soulless reproductive machines. I didn't go by ship. I used a type of ancient biological pod, an infiltration craft once wielded by the forgotten warriors of old to slip through planetary magnetic barriers. It emitted no heat, left no propulsion trace. All it needed was a heartbeat and a destination shaped by will. When I stepped inside, its living tissues curled around me like a stomach, soft, warm, and sticky, like the lips of a woman swallowing my body whole. There was no light. Only the sound of heartbeats, mine, and the pods, pulsing in sync. And then, I vanished. When I opened my eyes again, I was beneath the outer membrane of the Varnex facility. A massive biostructure floated in the mid-atmospheric layer, like a colossal kidney, filtering gene flows extracted from the women kept inside. No one had to explain it to me. I felt it. In the air. In the membrane walls. In the rhythm of synthetic patrol footsteps. Everything breathed the same enzyme, a cold, oppressive rhythm, devoid of emotion. Only biology. I moved through its coiled corridors, wet and smooth like intestines, dimly lit by the glow of neural nodes embedded in the walls. Every time my feet touched the surface, the armor adjusted its molecular structure to avoid leaving any bioelectric trace. I didn't walk, I slid, like I belonged to the system. No one detected me. Not because I was invisible, but because I had become something they thought erased from the galaxy. I reached the central chamber, where suspended biochambers hung in viscous amber fluid. Dozens, hundreds of Earth women floated there, eyes shut, heart slow, consciousness locked away by suppression waves. I didn't know them all. But I knew her. Lee. She lay near the bottom, Still the same lips. Still the faint flutter of eyelashes each time enzymes pulsed through her wrist veins. I didn't know what she dreamed of. I wasn't even sure she remembered me. But I knew I had never wanted to destroy something more than I did now. As I stepped closer, her pod trembled gently. The living armor on my hand began to glow, as if it too recognized this woman, was important. I placed my palm on the bioglass. It didn't open. But my skin burned hot. Not with fire, but with resolve. And then I felt it. An eye. Not from behind. Not above. But from inside the space around me. It felt like static fingertips brushing across my skin. The vertebrae in my neck stiffened. The plates of my armor pulsed like awakened flesh. And I knew she was watching. I turned. No one. But then there was a curve emerging from the dark. Skin translucent, reflecting starlight, sculpted from the cosmos itself. She walked toward me in silence. No armor. No weapons. Only a sheer biological veil clinging to her body like it had been designed to worship every curve she had. Rin'vess. I had seen her files. But nothing could have prepared me for this feeling. You shouldn't be here, she said. Her voice didn't come from her mouth. It echoed inside my skull, soft, low, slow, like breathing within a strange, lucid dream. Then why didn't you raise the alarm? I asked, my hand still pressed to Lee's pod. Rin stepped closer. There was no hostility in her eyes. Only something else. Curiosity. Hunger. Conflict. I need to understand what it is about you that won't let me look away. She stopped just one breath away. Her hand lifted. She didn't touch me. But I felt she wanted to. You trying to manipulate me with pheromones? I growled. Using adaptive biology to seduce me. She didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it. She only smiled, soft, sharp, like silk-wrapped steel. It's not that. It's me. Rin'vess. And for the first time, I want to touch someone not because I was programmed to. I didn't step back. I didn't step forward. We stood there between the stolen, sleeping bodies of our women. Between me, a flame barely contained, and her, a creature whose moral code was cracking open, cell by cell. Then the alarm sounded. They had found me. No time to think. I slammed my fist into the enzyme console, breaking the chamber locks. The pods opened. Fluid spilled like amniotic waves. The women began to stir, coughing, gasping, eyes wide with disoriented panic. Rin'vess didn't stop me. She only whispered as I hoisted Lee over my shoulder, go. Before I changed my mind. I looked at her one last time. Her eyes no longer carried the cold of a superior officer. They held something else. Something fragile. Forbidden. Desired. I ran. Lee breathed faintly on my back, but her heart still beat. And I knew. I would not stop. Not for her. Not for me. But for everything she had suffered at the hands of creatures like Rin. Even if, deep down, I knew. Not all of them were the same. And not all feelings can be silenced. I brought Lee back using the very same biopod that once carried me into battle. But for the first time, it didn't move with the drive to fight. It moved with fear, the fear that if I didn't act fast enough, I'd lose her forever. In my arms, her body was soft like an unfinished memory, and every faint breath escaping her lips felt like a whispered warning that the time left for me was running out. I had no idea how long we traveled. I don't remember the moment we left the Varnex station. It all blurred into a void, and inside that void, only my heartbeat remained, pounding, panicked, desperate, like the drums summoning demons back from the dark. When we landed at the underground base in the Arctic, the frozen ground cracked with a sound like the planet itself recoiling from the return of something too primal to name. Lee was placed into a deep biological recovery chamber, an outlawed device, reactivated from the post-satellite wars. The doctors looked at me as if I was something they didn't want near them, yet couldn't dare disobey. I didn't need them to believe in who I was. I only needed them to save her. To keep that heartbeat. To preserve that skin tone. To hold on to any remaining fragment of the woman who once loved me with a glance and a smile. I sat outside the chamber for 2 days. No sleep. No food. The living armor around me retracted into a thin biological membrane that clung to my skin, almost melting away, so its own power wouldn't suffocate me. I allowed no one near. And every time Lee convulsed faintly, I stood up, gripping the metal railing so hard I thought it would snap. I had never been afraid before. But now I was terrified that if she opened her eyes, she wouldn't look at me the same way again. And I was right. On the morning of the 3rd day, she woke. Her eyes opened slowly, vacant like hallway lights flickering from a blown circuit. The doctors were about to enter, but I was already there. I said nothing. I waited for her to say my name. Just one syllable would have been enough. But she looked at me as if I were a stranger. "Do you remember me?" I asked, my voice lower than the wind scraping along the steel walls. She stared at me for a long time. The eyes that once held galaxies of faith were now just 2 bottomless voids. "Who are you?" Her voice cracked, thin as eggshell about to break. Something inside me snapped, not bone, not flesh. Hope. They told me she still had memories, but the emotion-layering enzymes had altered their storage format. That meant her memories of me might still exist, but they were no longer hers. They were like fragments of a film spliced into a player that couldn't read them. Even if I shouted, reached for her, touched her skin, in her mind, I was just a man who smelled of blood and fire. I left the room. No one stopped me. No one followed. I wandered alone through the underground halls, where the flickering neon lights pulsed like the dying rhythm of something on life support. I punched a control panel. Slammed my fists into steel walls. But no one heard. Because the pain of the strong rarely has anyone to comfort it. And the stronger you are, the lonelier it becomes. I climbed to the top of the station. The Arctic sky was grey, like a disappointment that hadn't yet faded. I let the wind strike my face, let the cold sink into me like a cruel awakening. And then, I felt that gaze again. Not Lee's. Hers. Rin'vess. I didn't need to see her to know. From orbit, from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, she was still connected to me, not through technology, but through a biological emotional bond that defied explanation. She didn't speak. But I heard her. A whisper echoed inside my mind, like wind slipping through a cracked door. You brought her back. But she doesn't look at you the same anymore. I clench my fists. I don't need your analysis. It's not analysis, she replied, her voice oddly calm. It's jealousy. I spun around and growled, you have no right. No right to love, she cut in. I'm not even sure if it's love. But I know this, the moment I saw you standing in front of that breeding chamber, eyes red, hands trembling, I stopped being Rin'vess. I went silent. The wind stopped too. As if the whole planet held its breath. So what are you now? I asked. A long pause. The one who will die if I can't touch you again. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Not from hurt. From guilt. I didn't hate her. But I couldn't forgive her either. Because inside me, the one who had returned wasn't a warrior. He was a man who had already lost the woman he loved while she was still alive, and lost her again the moment she woke up. I returned to the room where Lee was being cared for. She was sleeping. But not peacefully. I sat beside her. I didn't touch her hand. I just sat there, quiet as a ghost. And I whispered, not for her to hear. But for myself. I burned down a biostation to bring you back. I faced a creature not of my world and felt drawn to her only because you no longer say my name. I bowed my head. Exhaled deeply. You may not remember me, but I will never forget you. Even if tomorrow, the one lying beside me isn't you. I began hearing her voice in my head, even when I didn't want to. Like an echo that never faded in a deep alleyway, like a breath brushing the back of my neck while I stood alone in the freezing dark, or when I touched an old weapon, she would appear. Not through any signal. Not through any network. But through something deeper, older than neurons. Instinct. Rin'vess was calling me. I tried to resist. I pushed those misaligned biofrequencies out of my mind. I focused on healing Lee. On the growing resistance camp. On helping men remember who they used to be. But at night, when I sat alone in a dark room, the living armor resting silently against my skin, I felt her. Not clearly. Not distinctly. But real, so real that my body would freeze at the mere ghost of a whisper. You feel it too, don't you? I didn't answer. But my palm burned right where she had almost touched me. I tried not to call your name, her voice faded like steam through cracks, but your name refuses to stay silent in my blood. She didn't speak with words. But the smallest frequencies from my mind were being heard, as if we were now tied to a resonance no machine could measure. From the moment she looked at me in that Varnex station, a bond had formed. Not command. Not control. But something older than evolution. A forbidden biological compatibility. I tried to ignore it. But the feeling clung to me like smoke under fingernails, impossible to wash away. I remembered her eyes when she said, "Go," before I changed my mind. But I also remembered the way her lips parted, like if I had taken one more step, she would not have let me leave. And the terrifying truth was, I wasn't sure if I was ready to go. Or to stay. 3 nights later, I left the base. Alone. No announcement. No words. I walked into the frozen forest beyond, where electromagnetic signals couldn't penetrate, where I used to train with ancient weapon relics. I needed quiet. But she wouldn't let me have it. When I reached the white stone clearing where the sky opened wide like the jaw of some primordial beast, I saw her. Rin'vess stood there. No armor. No living suit. Only her lithe figure, draped in a veil-thin garment that shimmered like winter moonlight, so sheer, her skin seemed to glow from within. Each breath left a soft mist. Each step she took, gentle, slow, cracked the ground beneath us, as if the earth itself recoiled from her presence. You shouldn't have come here, I said, my voice low and rough like stone being carved. You shouldn't have come to the Varnex station. But you did. She walked closer. Not in haste. But each step pulled at my heartbeat, slowing it, then pounding, like war drums before execution. I could feel my own body betraying me, and not out of fear, but because I knew it was reacting. What do you think this is? She asked, stopping just one breath away from me. A glitch? A joke? Or something the galaxy tried to forget, but never could erase, the human, and a creature engineered never to love, now craving each other so badly that our biology sent out warnings. I said nothing. My eyes were locked on hers. Her skin shifted color with her emotion, pale pink at her throat, silver along her collarbone, a deep red bloom across her waist. She didn't hide it. She let me see it. I've tried touching others, she said. None of them made my body react. Touching them was like touching cold water. No spark. No shiver. No desire. But you. She raised her hand. Pressed it to my chest. When I think of you, my auxiliary reproductive nerves spike like electric pulses. My heart skips a beat. And my skin becomes wet. I grabbed her wrist. Not to pull away. Not to draw her in. Just to hold. Like keeping tension on a wire that would snap if released. You're the enemy, I said, barely above a whisper. So are you, she answered. But that night, you spared me. And tonight, I'm not here to surrender. She leaned closer. Her breath touched my lips, warm and humid. I'm here to tell you, she whispered, that if I can't touch you again, I'll die. Because my body is evolving toward you. And if you reject that, I won't be Rin'vess anymore. I could have killed her. I had the strength. One squeeze of my hand, and her neck would snap. But I didn't. I leaned in. Our lips inches apart. You sure? I asked. Because once I touch you, I won't stop. Her eyes no longer belonged to a soldier. They were the eyes of a woman opening, not out of love, but because she had no other choice. I don't want you to stop, she breathed. And I kissed her. Not gently. Not softly. But like fire bursting through stone. Like two blades clashing, never meant to part again. My hands gripped her waist. Her arms wrapped around my neck, tight, deep, as if letting go would rip her apart. When I pushed her against the cold stone wall, her skin began to glow. The biotissues beneath her skin bloomed like petals, welcoming each thrust, each friction. She moaned, an alien sound between a woman's breath and waves crashing. Her body adapted, molded to me, responding to every motion. She wasn't human. But that night, she was mine. And I couldn't deny it. Amid the frost, the ice, the ruins of a love already lost. She was the second flame. And I was burning. I returned to base the next morning, after a night no one dared ask about. Faint glows from my living armor still shimmered along my skin, not fully reabsorbed. The scent of Rin'vess lingered in the folds of my body, an organic fragrance both soft and sharp, like a kind of light you could smell. I walked through the main corridor, past gathered resistance units. No one met my gaze for long. Some turned away. Others lowered their heads. And I knew some truths didn't need to be said. Everyone had heard. Word traveled fast. She had been here. She had come. And I, the one they called their final hope, had slept with the creature who once imprisoned their women as reproductive tools. I didn't care. I only wanted to see Lee. She was sitting in a small artificial garden where synthetic sunlight bathed clusters of moss and feathertail plants used to filter the air. She wore a white robe. Her hair was uncombed, and one damp strand clung to the nape of her neck. When I stepped in, she looked up. Those eyes I used to memorize every flicker, every movement, now looked at me like I was a stranger who had stepped into a world where I didn't belong. You're back, she said. Not high. Not low. Flat. Like a statement, not a greeting. I nodded. Are you feeling better? Physically, maybe. I said nothing more. She didn't either. The simulated breeze rustled the leaves of the bioengineered trees. The air felt clean, quiet. But inside me, a scream grew louder, a dread that she already knew. And then she looked up, her gaze locking on mine. You were with her last night. Weren't you? There was no question in her voice. No build-up. Just a blade, clean and straight to the chest. I stood there, my hands curling into fists. Not from anger, but because I couldn't deny it. Yes, I said. I was with her. She nodded slightly, eyes never leaving mine. Do you love her? No. Do you want her? I inhaled, deeply. Like every word she spoke pressed down on my chest like gravity. It wasn't about want. It was something I couldn't stop. Why? She stepped closer. Because I'm no longer me? Because I can't remember you? Because her skin glows like moonlight and mine is covered in scars. I wanted to hold her. I wanted to scream. To say it wasn't like that. But any explanation would shatter beneath a truth I couldn't even argue. I had been pulled toward something else. She gave a small laugh. Not audible. but her eyes cracked, like frosted glass scratched by time. "You know what hurts me most," she whispered. "Not that you slept with the enemy, but that I'm no longer the reason you stop." I tried to protest, but she had already turned. Her hair swayed gently in the wind. Fragile. Cold. Distant, like a planet that once knew my name, but had chosen a new orbit. She walked out of the garden. No goodbye. No anger. No tears. But I knew that was the first time I truly lost her. I didn't speak to anyone that entire day. I returned to the training grounds. I struck the metal pillars until my living armor tore open and my blood mixed with the regenerative enzymes. I wanted pain. I wanted to forget. But she appeared again. Not in form. In voice. A sound only I could hear. "I warned you," Rin'vess whispered inside my mind. "If you touched me, you wouldn't be able to let go." "You know nothing," I growled. "I know she's no longer yours. I know you're clinging to a memory while your body craves the present." I sank to the cold floor. Hands over my eyes. Trembling. "She was the reason I awakened this bloodline," I said. "The reason I crossed fire, crossed stations, crossed death. And I'm the reason you still feel alive," Rin'vess replied. I couldn't deny it. I hated her. I wanted her. I had slept with the enemy. And the woman I loved knew it. And the worst part was, she didn't resent me. She just no longer needed me. They came on the third day after that night. No warning. No roar. No landing. Just a subtle shift in the ionosphere, like the air itself had clenched tight, as if someone who had kept a secret too long had finally swallowed their last tear. I felt it deep in my bones. A frequency only creatures who had once been hunted could recognize. And I knew they weren't coming for me. They were coming for her. Rin'vess. She was no longer at the base. After the night we became one, she left in silence, left no message, passed on no memory, only the faint trace of her lips on my neck, where the living armor never fully covered. I didn't go looking for her. Because I understood she was fighting. Against herself. Against her species. Against a fracture that should never exist in the Varnax structure. A high-ranking being had fallen for a human. I was sitting in the command chamber when the signal of the first execution squad appeared. They were the apex of Varnax biological enforcement, genderless, formless, speechless, pure directive. Each one a blade-given shape, designed to eliminate biologically corrupted entities. They didn't hunt. They sensed. And if Rin'vess was still alive, they would tear her apart. I stood. Took the biocannon from the wall. The living armor clung to my skin like breathing fire, sealing to every muscle. My palms burned, not from war, but because I had chosen a side. I activated the long-range signal, broadcasting across the remaining orbital satellites. "My name is Jax," I said to the sky. "If any one of you touches her, I will burn your entire species to ash." I didn't care who heard. I wasn't waiting for a reply. I only knew, if I didn't protect her, I would no longer be myself. And if I couldn't keep that promise, then nothing in this life was worth keeping. She was hiding in the neutral zone between two gravitational bands, where no field was stable, where scanners from both humans and Varnax distorted. But I still found her. Not with tech. But through the link between two beings who had dissolved into each other, not just in flesh, but in genes, in loneliness, in things never meant to be named. When I stepped into the shelter pod, she was kneeling. Naked. Eyes closed. I saw the slight tremble in her spine. Not from cold, but because she was waiting for me. Either to die, or to be held. "I didn't think you'd come," she said as I approached, her voice so soft I'd have missed it if I didn't already know the sound of her heartbeat. "I told you," I said, kneeling beside her. "I won't let anyone touch you." She opened her eyes. The gold and silver rings in them shattered like glass. "They've sentenced me," she whispered. "Because I broke the gene law. Because I chose you. Because I evolved in a way they can't control." I touched her cheek. Cold, but real. "You're mine," I said. Not because of that night, but because only you knew who I was when I forgot myself. She broke down. Not in tears, but in her skin, each biocell lit up like waves of sun beneath the surface, trembling, responding to every word I spoke, as if her entire biological system was crying. "I have nowhere left to go," she whispered. "Then come with me," I said. "And if they come, I won't let anyone lay a hand on you. You'll die." "No," I whispered, my lips near her cheek, my voice the sound of someone who had already tasted despair. "They will." The sky turned dark grey as the Varnex fleet arrived. No engine noise. No lights. Just black blotches like tumors in the sky, reeking of bioprogramming and the coldness of a civilization that had long lost its heart. I stepped outside, alone. Behind me was the abandoned outpost. Inside, she sat, wrapped in a biocloak, fingers clutching a strand of my hair left behind after yesterday's training. They descended like blades from the clouds. No commands. No warnings. Only execution. I activated my armor, fully. Flames erupted. Not plasma. Real fire, the kind encoded in the blood of ancient warriors. Sentient fire. Fire that remembered. Fire that consumed even those whose names were erased. I didn't dodge. I attacked. Every punch. Every strike. Every roar was a declaration: she is mine. And whoever touches her will have no place left in this galaxy. 30 minutes later, the entire execution squad was annihilated. None returned. I walked back. She was still there, staring at me like I was a god with a soul too fractured to shine. I sat beside her, pressed my forehead to hers, and whispered. "They once said we were errors. But they forgot, errors cannot be deleted. Because they prove something exists beyond control." She nodded. Her arms wrapped around me. This time, no one stopped us. No more reasons. No more doubts. Only us. The first signal came from high orbit, not in words, but in gravitational tremors. An ancient code, once reserved for the highest echelons of interstellar diplomacy. Not for negotiation, but for ultimatum. Return the genetically deviant entity, or we will release a viral sequence that will render humanity infertile for 3 generations. They didn't need to know where I was. They didn't send ships. Just a sentence, like a slap across the face of all mankind. A reminder that even if I had slaughtered their hunters, even if I had torched their patrol ships, even if I loved her enough to tear down their genetic commandments, I was still the lesser species. I didn't answer. I lit the flame. Deep beneath the base, I descended into the storage vault, where my grandfather had once hidden the one thing even the Orion Accord forbade us to touch, a Generation Zero extinction core. No one knew what it really was. No one dared test it. But I knew. Because it wasn't built by machines. It was forged from memories, old memories, from human warriors who once declared war on the stars themselves. It didn't explode. It made galaxies kneel. I summoned them to a void space chamber, a region with no gravity, no magnetics, no sensors. Just a round metal table. And me sitting there, my hand resting on the core. Beside me was Rin'vess. She sat silently, her hand clenched around the hem of my jacket. No glow left on her skin. Just a woman, not belonging to this world, not to the old one either. But to me. Across the table, 13 entities manifested. They had no faces. No limbs. Only projections of living code, echoes of the ones who had written the Varnex biological charter. Each one a species. Each one a legacy. and every one of them carried the same expression. Contempt. Human, one of them spoke, you have violated 7 core statutes. The entity beside you is bioproperty. You will surrender her. I said nothing. We do not seek war. You are being offered mercy. Still silence. Jax, you were once a memory. Now you're a shadow. Don't turn yourself into a virus. I smiled. Barely. Viruses, I said, are the most enduring life forms in the universe. And you forget. I descend from a species once called the faceless fear. I opened the core. No explosion. No light. Only silence. And then, from within the very space they occupied, a fissure tore through, black as fractured time. And from it spilled the old memories, hundreds of human warriors walking through flame and dust, eyes unblinking, hands steady. Each one a chapter erased from history. Now returned, not to kill, but to remind. We were once knelt before the for mercy. And we gave it. You, and now, will do the same. One entity stood. Its voice cracked. What do you want? I placed my hand on Rin's thigh. She took it, said nothing. I looked straight into the artificial eyes of the council, and said, she doesn't go back to you. She won't be controlled. She won't be decoded. She won't be unmade. From now on, she is free. And I stood. And if you want her to live, you kneel. 1 minute passed. 2. 3. Then one of the 13 bowed his head. Then the second. Then the third. I said nothing more. I didn't need to. Because when the galaxy kneels for love, I don't need to win anymore. I only need to live with the one who chose me, when I could no longer choose anyone at all. That night, we left Earth. No one stopped us. No one dared. We flew into an uncharted void, where no stars shone, no war lingered, and no history waited. Just us, not victors, not survivors. But 2 souls once rejected. Who built a universe of their own, where even war had to kneel.